For our consciousness-raising project, we chose to analyze the depictions of women in Disney princess movies in context to the hegemonic ideals of the era that the movie was filmed. Additionally, we examined how those ideals evolved throughout time and suggested ways they could be revised for future films.
This topic is important to us because as a group of all women, we want to advocate for change in how we are represented in films and the media. Children learn how to act and adapt views in the world based on portrayals of women in films they are exposed to. Gender is performative and is created through a set of bodily acts that shape how we move about in the world. The Disney Princess franchise and other popular media serve as huge outlets for children to learn gender and often causes them to subconsciously embody hegemonic gender roles. This makes it important for the media that children view to convey messages of female empowerment.
Throughout history, Disney has been a very crucial part of pop culture and gives various ideas of what young girls should strive to become as women. Although Disney has progressed over the course of time and has created various molds for young girls, there are still so many that need to be explored. Throughout this presentation, we want to examine and explore the various identities of a few princesses, what things they exhibit best, and what things should be deeper explored.
When examining all of the Disney princesses, we were able to categorize them into 3 categories: classical princesses, Renaissance princesses, and revival princesses. Princesses within the classical category closely adhered to the hegemonic traditional family values that dominated the 1930s to 1960s. The women are depicted as delicate and comfortable in their domesticity. Renaissance princesses are less passive and more rebellious against the patriarchal systems in their lives. This change stems from third-wave feminism, which came about in the 1990s. Although the women seem to want more, they still end up making large sacrifices for the men in their life. Finally, revival Disney princesses exhibit the most minimal gender bias. In addition, the leading women have a lot more in common with their male counterparts than in previous movies. The plot centers around strong and determined female protagonists.
To begin, we want to start off with one of the classic princesses, Cinderella. Cinderella was created in the 1950s as the traditional homemaker and is arguably one of the most popular Disney films created. In the era in which Cinderella was created, it was quite normal for the women of the family to tend to the needs of the home. She is portrayed as a damsel in distress, dressed in rags and in need of her prince to come find her. But despite this, her identity comes with privilege. Although poor, she is also able-bodied and white, giving her advantages that many other women not represented on the screen would not have had. At this time, women of color faced a different type of oppression that would have perhaps made the story a little bit different.
Up next are the Renaissance princesses. In 1998, amidst the third wave of feminism, Disney gave us Mulan. Following the lead of princesses like Jasmine and Pocahontas, Mulan tells a story of a woman of color rebelling against the patriarchy. The film was a positive step forward for Disney as it broke away from the damsel in distress trope and instead shares the story of a woman who saves the day. She is shown as strong and determined, fulfilling the role of the hero and proving that women can offer more to the world than being a wife, even though she has to pretend to be a man in order to do so. Although the film portrays some feminist ideals, Mulan also reinforces other gender stereotypes. It is clear by the depictions and dialogues that there is one way to be a man and one way to be a woman. Men must be strong and repress emotion, and the quote-unquote girlier recruits must be transformed into real men by gruesome training. Women are depicted as the binary opposite, fair and dainty, serving a purpose to bring honor to their families through marriage. While Mulan strives to break free from these binary barriers, the film concludes with her declining an official position from the emperor to return home to be the obedient daughter. This captures the essence of the Renaissance princess, who strives for more but essentially sacrifices a large portion of her autonomy for the men in her life. Although at some points empowering, the movie conforms to the gender binary, reaffirms gender stereotypes, and largely depends on Mulan's privilege as an able-bodied woman to physically fight battles.
In 2009, Disney would create their first African-American and revival princess, Tiana. Tiana is a hardworking small business owner and working-class woman who resides in New Orleans. By this time, Disney had displayed a few princesses of different ethnicities, which allowed them to become more diverse and appeal to a wider audience. Tiana doesn't display the typical distressed woman persona, but instead she becomes the savior for her husband. Princess and the Frog also assisted in normalizing the concept of interracial marriages. Prior to the release of Cinderella, only 4% of people approve of interracial marriages, but when Princess and the Frog was released, 86% of these people approved of interracial marriages. Although Tiana would be considered underprivileged based on her race, gender, and social class, the film shows Tiana excelling professionally and personally despite her identities. She is just as intelligent and determined as men are typically displayed, but also shows the feminine characteristics we are used to. Tiana is the best of both worlds and the type of woman young girls should strive to be. Although there is the typical magical aspect to Princess and the Frog, it currently is the most modernized version of what we know and hope to achieve as women in the 21st century.
Not only is it important for change to be implemented by Disney, but also it is important for parents to alter their children's engagement with media.
Ideally, we want to advocate for the creation of Disney princesses with many different identity aspects, such as disabled princesses with different body shapes and careers, as well as princesses with different races, class backgrounds, and gender identities. But there are also solutions that parents can use to deal with media and how their children are viewing it. It is important that parents are paying attention to the films and media that their children are engaging with, and that they have the option to limit their media use. The characters within Disney films, especially princesses for young women, serve as role models. Young girls aspire to be like the princesses they see on screen, and thus it is important that parents approve of these role models or supplement them with figures they approve of, such as themselves.
It is extremely difficult to control media and what messages will be conveyed, but parents have control of who their children emulate and aspire to be. In the end, we believe Disney princesses should always serve as role models for young girls, and it is very crucial that Disney is creating movies that depict all types of women in various contexts.
Conclusively, Disney has made progress within the storylines of their princesses. We have witnessed the evolution of princesses who only cook, clean, and sing to those who owned a restaurant and were determined to fill their dreams no matter what. Despite this progress, many princesses still have these hegemonic and privileged characteristics, and there's still a lot of work that needs to be done in order to create princesses as role models for all people of varying identities.